Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be going through a brief introduction about JavaScript and its history. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a versatile, high-level programming language that is one of the core technology of the World Wide Web alongside HTML and CSS. It is used to create dynamic and interactive content on websites and can be used for both client-side and server-side development. Here's a brief history about JavaScript. JavaScript was created by Brendan Eich at Netscape Communications in 1995 to make web pages dynamic and interactive. JavaScript was created and released in 1995. Brendan Eich developed JavaScript in just 10 days. It was first implemented in the Netscape Navigator 2 browser. In 1996, Microsoft reverse engineered JavaScript to create its own version called JScript for Internet Explorer 3, which led to compatibility issues for developers across different browsers. To resolve inconsistencies, in 1997, Netscape submitted JavaScript to the European Computer Manufacturers Association for standardization. The standard was named ECMAScript, ECMA 262. In 2005, there was a race of Ajax. Jesse James Garrett released a paper introducing Ajax, which stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, a set of technologies using JavaScript that allowed web pages to update content without a full page reload, dramatically improving user experience and making JavaScript more recognized as a professional language. In 2008, Google Chrome and V8 Google released its Chrome browser featuring the V8 JavaScript engine, which compiled JavaScript into machine code for faster execution, pushing performance boundaries. ECMAScript 2015, also known as ES6, was a landmark update that introduced major features and syntax improvements such as classes, modules, arrow functions, and promises, making the language more powerful and structured for complex applications. From 2016 to present, there are frequent annual releases following ES6. The ECMA TC39 committee shifted to a yearly release cycle for smaller incremental updates, ensuring continuous evolution and adoption of new features. Today, JavaScript is one of the most widely used programming language used in nearly all websites for client-side functionality as well as for server-side, mobile, and desktop application development. Next, we'll move on to JavaScript Essentials. We'll be dealing with some essential building blocks of JavaScript. We will start with indentation, white space, what they are and why we need to use them. So, how do you actually write JavaScript code? There are some important things to keep in mind, such as how to format the code, using the right indentation level, using semicolon, and adding comments. Let's start with formatting code. Formatting code. Code needs to be formatted well. If you have a long file with many lines of code and you didn't stick to a few basic formatting rules, it's going to be hard to understand what you have written. So what are the basic formatting rules? The two most important for now are indentations and semicolons. There are also naming conventions and others. We'll look into it later. If you are using VS Code Editor, Prettier is an opinionated code formatter that ensures a consistent style in your VS Code projects. When you are writing code, often the line of code belongs to a certain code block. It is the code between open and closed curly brackets. If that's the case, you give that code in that block one indentation to make sure that you can see easily what is the part of the block and when a new block starts. You don't need to understand the following code snippet, but it will demonstrate readability with and without indentations. This is a piece of code without new lines and indentations, and below it is with lines and indentations. You can now easily see when the code block starts and when it ends, and where the if statement begins. In the example without indentations, you would have to count the brackets to determine when the if block would end. Even though it is not necessary for working code, make sure to use indentations well. You will thank yourself later. Indentations in JavaScript is the practice of using spaces or tabs to create visual hierarchy in the code, which significantly enhances its readability and maintainability for human developers. Indentations is used for structure visualization. It makes the hierarchical structure of the code apparent at a glance, clearly showing which lines of code belong inside functions, loops, or conditional statements. It's used for easier debugging and maintenance. Well-indented code is easier to understand and debug, which is crucial when collaborating on complex projects or revisiting old code. And is used for professional standard. Following consistent indentation conventions is considered a professional best practice and is often enforced in collaborative environment through style guides and automated tools like ESLint or Prettier. In JavaScript, whitespace refers to characters that provide horizontal or vertical space but are generally ignored by JavaScript engine for code execution, except within string literals. They are used to format code to improve readability and organization. The ECMAScript specification defines several characters as whitespace, including space, tab, line, feed, carriage return, vertical tab, form feed, no break space, semicolon. After every statement, you should insert a semicolon. JavaScript is very forgiving and will understand many situations in which you have forgotten one, but develop a habit of adding one after every line of code. When you declare a code block such as an if statement or loop, you should not end with a semicolon. It's only for the separate statement. With comments, you can tell the interpreter to ignore some lines of the file. They won't get executed if they are comments, which is often useful to be able to avoid executing a part of the file. This could be for the following reasons. You do not want to execute a piece of code while running the script, so you comment it out so it gets ignored by the interpreter. Metadata. Adding some context to the code, such as the author and the description of what the file covers. Adding comments to specific parts of the code to explain what is happening or why a certain choice has been made. There are two ways to write comments. You can either write single-line comments or multi-line comments. In this example you see, the first one is a single-line comment. This can also be an inline comment at the end of the line. Whatever comes after the two forward slashes on the line will get ignored. The second one is multi-line comment. Whatever is between the slash, asterisk and the asterisk slash will not get executed. In JavaScript, literals are fixed values returned directly into the code. Unlike variables or complex expressions, literals offer an explicit and concrete value, making coding more straightforward and manageable. You can use different literals to represent various data types in JavaScript. They offer a simple and direct way to express data without needing to perform intricate calculations or external requests. In this example, red, blue, green, yellow are array literals. True or false are Boolean literals. Mike is string literal. An identifier is a sequence of characters in the code that identifies a variable, function, or property. In most languages, identifiers are case sensitive and not quoted. An identifier is a name you give to a variable. In JavaScript, identifiers can contain Unicode letters like $symbol, underscore, and digits from 0 to 9, but may not start with a digit. An identifier differs from a string, in that the string is data, while identifier is part of the code. In JavaScript, there is no way to convert identifiers to strings, but sometimes it is possible to parse strings into identifiers. Imagine a sea of bits, an ocean of them. A typical modern computer has more than 100 billion bits in its volatile data storage, that is working memory. Non-volatile storage, that is the hard disk or equivalent, tends to have yet a few orders of more magnitude. To be able to work with such quantities of bits without getting lost, we separate them into chunks that represent pieces of information. In a JavaScript environment, those chunks are called values. Though all values are made up of bits, they play different roles. Every value has a type that determines its role. Some values are numbers, some values are pieces of text, some values are functions that are stored in a variable. As soon as you no longer use a value, it will dissipate, leaving behind its bits to be recycled as building material for the next generation of values. In this example, the hello string is a value given to the variable greetings and the number 12 is a value. And string and numbers are the types of those values. Next is variables. Variables are the first building block you will be introduced to when learning most languages. They are the containers for storing information. A variable is a value assigned to an identifier, so you can reference and use it later in the program. A variable must be declared before you can use it. We have two main ways to declare variables. The first is using const, the second is using let. Data type. A data type is an attribute associated with a piece of data that tells a computer system how to interpret its value. Understanding data types ensures that data is collected in the preferred format and the value of each property is as expected. A data type is the type of data a variable has. It tells that the variable assigned is a text or a number. In JavaScript, there are two categories of data types, primitive data types and non-primitive data types. And note, JavaScript does not have a date data type. Precedence rule. The set of rules that defines the order in which operations are performed in an expression based on the operators between the operands. Some operations have more precedence than others. Multiplication, division, modulus has the first precedence. Then comes addition, subtraction, and then assignment. Operations on same level like addition and subtraction are executed in the order they are found from left to right. In JavaScript, an expression is any valid unit of code that the interpreter can parse and compute to produce a single value. Expressions are the building blocks of the code that represent values, whether they are simple or complex. Each expression results in a single value, which could be a number, a string, a boolean, an object, or a function. The key characteristics of an expression is that it evaluates to a result, which can be used anywhere in the program where a value is expected, such as assigning it to a variable, using it as a function argument, or embedding it in JSX. An operator in JavaScript is a symbol or keyword that tells the JavaScript engine to perform a specific action or operation on one or more values or variables known as operands and returns a result. For example, in the expression x plus 5, the plus symbol is the operator and x and 5 are the operands. And that's it for today's video on JavaScript intro. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more coding concepts. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.